Mastery isn't just about talent. The art you see in museums, the artworks that feel like they're speaking directly to you, they were not created overnight. Someone spent years refining their craft and going through frustration, making mistakes to reach that level. And the crazy part is, it will take you years too. When I first started art school, my teacher would repeat the same phrase over and over again. You don't know what you don't know. And at the time I was like, okay, whatever that means.
Okay.
But then 1 year into the program, it just hit me like a truck. Like, I was struggling with things I didn't even know existed before. It was like constantly unlocking new levels in a game, except the levels never stopped. You know in The Sims, when you develop a skill and you keep at it? Yeah, imagine that, but it never ends. So if you're an artist feeling frustrated and doubting yourself, let me save you 3 years of frustration and tell you the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way. Number 1, there really are things that you don't know that you don't know. This one is a hard pill to swallow and even pretty hard to understand at first. There are aha moments your brain isn't even close to having yet. And the only way to reach them is if you keep searching and keep experimenting. Art is like one big math problem, except you're working with light, shadow, and form instead of numbers. You're constantly adding, subtracting, and adjusting until you reach your desired outcome. Some problems will take days to solve, and some will take years. And just like math, the more problems you solve, the better you get. But if you stop practicing, you stay stuck. Number 2, your progress will depend on one thing, and it's you. Your growth as an artist doesn't depend on talent, not on your teachers, not on expensive art supplies. It depends on the small daily choices that you make. Will you absorb what you're learning, or will the information go in one ear and out the other? Will you push through frustration, or will you quit the moment things don't make sense? Will you keep at it when you feel like you're not improving? Because here's the thing, no one is coming to save you. Your teacher can guide you, but they won't always be there. At some point, you have to become your own teacher. And if you don't put in the work, no one else will do it for you. 3, it's never going to get easy. I used to think that one day everything would just suddenly feel effortless, that I'd reach a level where I can just paint without struggle. But I've been waiting for that day since the first day of art school, and guess what? It hasn't come yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I'm really happy that I noticed that, because I understand now that the struggle is what makes art art. Every single artwork that I make low-key costs me something, whether it's back pain, wrist pain, my sanity, but there's always a struggle. That's part of the process. Art is like a never-ending puzzle, and the funniest part is that you decide when it's done. You decide when to stop refining and when to move on. You're the one that gets to call something finished, and you can even decide to never finish something. Number 4, no one is watching you as closely as you think. Unless you're in art school, maybe your teachers are actually paying attention to your development. But one of the biggest mental traps that artists fall into is thinking that everyone is analyzing their progress and that everyone is judging them for making mistakes. I used to be afraid of making bad art because I was afraid that people were gonna judge me for that. The truth is that no one is watching you that closely. No one is keeping the score, and nobody actually cares. The only thing that people really see is the final product, not the hundreds of failed sketches, not the late nights where you've been crashing out about a drawing, and they don't know about that crooked hand you drew. All of that self-doubt that you've experienced along the way, nobody really knows about it. So stop holding yourself back because of some imaginary audience in your head that's haunting you. This is not the X Factor. Nobody's gonna judge you for trying. When I got critiques at school in the beginning, I saw it as being judged. But when I looked deeper, I was simply receiving help. So see critiques as a tool for improvement, not judgment. The only way to improve is to create freely, mess up a lot, and just keep going anyway. Number 5, perfectionism is just fear in disguise. Let's be honest. Perfectionism sounds like a really good thing, like you have high standards and you expect more from yourself. I used to think that it was a flex being a perfectionist, but I realize now that I was hiding behind that label to avoid making mistakes that would literally help me improve. In reality, perfectionism is just fear pretending to be ambition. You get fear of failure, of judgment, and of simply not being good enough. And you know what happens when you let that fear win? You just don't finish anything. You have unfinished artworks everywhere. You stay stuck. And you get stuck in an endless cycle of overthinking and never actually improving because you're too afraid to move on. Instead of aiming for perfect, aim for progress. Just finish the work, post it, and move on. Perfection doesn't truly exist because it depends on what you find perfect. And what if somebody else just comes in and is like, oh, that's not perfect to me, you know? So perfection is actually in the eye of the beholder, but improvement does exist. And an example of this is actually that none of my videos are perfect, and that's just it. The same goes with my artworks. None of them are perfect. I can pinpoint every single mistake that I've made in every single painting. 6. Comparison could kill your creativity. Social media is both a blessing and a curse because you can get on there and get inspiration, but you can also get on there and start comparing yourself to artists that are 5 years or 10 years or 20 years even into their art journey, and you're like, oh, I can't draw like that, I must suck. But here's what I realized. The artists that you admire also struggled, but the only thing is that you never saw that. And your bad art today might be somebody else's goal. The only artist you should compare yourself to is yourself last year. The same thing applies for art school. You see all your classmates making amazing art and wonder, how did they do that? Just know that they sacrificed something, whether it's their time, their energy. Just know it took work to get to where they are. They didn't just magically start drawing like that. They practiced. And instead of scrolling and feeling discouraged, use that energy to create. Because the more you create, the faster you'll reach your own potential. Number 7, the most successful artists are simply the ones that didn't quit. I used to think that you had to be born with talent to be truly amazing at art. But after 3 years of art school, I realized the truth. The ones who became professionals, they weren't necessarily the most talented in the beginning. They were just the ones who kept showing up, kept practicing, and kept believing that they could get better. One time, one of my teachers told me that she was the worst in her class, and I was like, nah, no way, because she paints like a goddess today. So to hear that was very interesting to me. She also said that it took like 14 years or something to get to the level where she's at right now. So if you're doubting yourself, remember, the only way to make it as an artist is to not quit. Which is why I wanted to document my journey with this channel, and I would love if you joined, subscribe. Number 8, the ugly phase is inevitable. Don't give up when you're in it. Every artwork goes through an ugly phase. Every single one. You know the moment when your painting looks like absolute garbage and you want to throw it away? Yeah, that's when most people quit. But what separates good artists from great artists is that they push through that ugly phase instead of giving up. Next time you're about to throw away an art piece, remember, the breakthrough comes right after the breakdown. That frustration you get, use it to keep going. Use it to finish the artwork anyway. Like, you gonna let a painting win over you? Like, are you gonna let the painting win, or are you gonna win? Like, who's the boss? Tell the painting who's the boss. The best parts of your art will always come the moments you almost gave up. Number 9, you will most likely hate your work more than everyone else. If you've ever looked at an artwork and thought, wow, this is really bad, that's very normal. It's completely normal. In fact, it's a sign that you're improving because your eyes are seeing things differently. Your taste develops faster than your skill, which means that you can see what's wrong, but you don't know how to fix it yet. We have this learning curve at my school that explains this phenomenon actually. The gap between your taste and your ability, that's the reason why you feel like your art sucks. But instead of quitting, realize this. If you keep going, one day your skills will catch up. that frustration means you're growing. The only way to close the gap is more practice. Every professional artist that you look up to felt that way once. The old masters who painted like this, they felt that way too, but they didn't let that stop them. Number 10. Creativity works like a muscle, so you either use it or you lose it. People think that creativity is something that you have or you don't have, but it's really a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And just like a muscle, if you don't use it, it weakens. This is why artists who take long breaks often struggle to get back into it. Creativity is a habit. The more you create, the easier it becomes to create. So even on the days you don't feel like drawing or you don't feel inspired, draw anyway, even if it's bad, even if it's messy, because actively drawing is the key to long-term growth. 11. You can't be original without first copying others or getting inspiration from others. This is why we do master copies as fine art students. A lot of artists get stuck because they want to be original right away. They want to have their own style. But here's the truth. Every great artist started by copying. Sargent, he copied the old masters before developing his own swag. Michelangelo, he studied under Domenico Ghirlandaio and also under Bertolo di Giovanni. I hope I pronounced that right, Adra. Yeah, but before finding his own style, he studied under them. The artists that you admire studied under others before they created something new. So if you're feeling stuck, don't be afraid to learn from those who came before you. Study their work, understand their techniques, and copy. Learn, and eventually your own style will emerge. Number 12, inspiration is overrated. Discipline is what truly matters. If you're waiting for inspiration, good luck, because you're gonna be waiting for a long time. The biggest lie artists believe is that they need to feel inspired to create, but inspiration is very unreliable. It comes and goes, and the artists who improve the fastest, they don't wait for inspiration. They create anyways. So stop waiting and pick up the brush or pencil and start drawing. Inspiration will literally meet you halfway. And last but not least, no one is going to come discover you unless you're really lucky. You really have to put yourself out there in order to be noticed. A lot of artists have this fantasy that one day somebody's going to come discover their art and help them get successful. Reality check, no one is going to come save you. And I know that it's a hard pill to swallow, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. And people most likely don't care about what you do unless it makes them feel something. The artists who succeed are the ones that put themselves out there. They post their work, they promote themselves, and they take the risks. If you're hiding your art because you're scared of judgment, you're also hiding opportunities. The more people see your work, the more chances you'll have to succeed. So stop waiting for somebody's permission and just share your work. Show up and make your own success happen. Art isn't always going to be easy. I used to be like, oh, it's going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. No, it was difficult lemon difficult. You will most likely have moments of doubt, but those who keep going will eventually create work that they once thought was impossible. So keep struggling and keep creating. Keep pushing forward. One day you'll look back and be like, wow, I really did that. If you're serious about becoming great, ask yourself this: can you commit to practicing like this for at least 3 years? It doesn't have to be going to art school. You could do it in your spare time, because the truth is, real progress doesn't happen overnight. But 3 years of consistent planned effort, that can change everything. In those 3 years, you can build an audience, develop your art style, and grow beyond what you thought was possible. So if you're feeling discouraged today, zoom out. Look at things from a different perspective, but keep going. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of y'all, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.